welcome to the program. There is a reason why Kamala Harris has been kept away from the cameras by her handlers since getting the nomination for the Democratic ticket. And yesterday we got the demonstration why in her first solo interview ever since she got this nomination on MSNBC. And since it was MSNBC, you know the questions were softballs that were probably given to her in advance, and yet the result was an absolute train wreck. Let's have a look at it. So here it is, Kamala Harris in her first interview. I don't think I've ever seen, a recent election where you've had a candidate for the presidency that has been kept away from the media that much. Even Joe Biden last time around, they kept him in a basement, but he still did more interviews than this. We are now, I don't know, like 2 months or 3 months since she got this nomination, and this is the first interview that she's doing, and we're like 5 weeks away from the election. Never seen that. This is absolutely incredible, unprecedented, but let's listen to what she has to say.
Madam Vice President, you just laid out your economic vision for the future. Yeah. But still, there are lots of Americans who don't see themselves in your plans. For those who say these policies aren't for me, what do you say to them?
Well, if you are hardworking, if you have the dreams and the ambitions and the aspirations of what I believe you do.
And this is the talking point that she's been rehashing every single time they ask her this type of question. It's like the dreams, the aspiration, and the ambitions, and the this and the that. And, it's just word salad, like that, what she's famous for, obviously. But, it's like these talking points are sort of getting old and they're totally meaningless, but somehow it's like the few things that she's able to remember when she's in front of the cameras is talk about the dreams and the aspirations and the this and the that of the American people. And it's like this is not working at all. I don't know why someone hasn't told her, okay, you need to switch those talking points and you need to answer, or at least pretend that you're going to answer the questions and not just talk this vague nonsense.
You're in my plan. I have to tell you, I really love and am so energized by what I know to be the spirit and character of the American people. We have ambition. We have aspirations. We have dreams. We can see what's possible. We have an incredible work ethic. But not everyone has the access to the opportunities that allow them to achieve those things.
This is nonsense.
But we don't lack
Let's
for those
move
things.
Here.
But not everyone, gets handed stuff on a silver.
Over the last 4 years, there have been tremendous economic wins, and you've just laid out a big plan. But still, polling shows that most likely voters still think Donald Trump is better to handle the economy. Why do you think that is?
Because I have a little bit of sense left into them.
Well, here's what I know in terms of the facts. Donald Trump left us with the worst economy since the Great Depression when you look at, for example, the employment numbers.
It was during COVID, and employment was so high because we shut down the government, we shut down the country.
Even before.
And that's incredible. She pushed back against her, I guess, this stupid talking point like Donald Trump left us the worst economy ever. Of course, it was during COVID. And, it's interesting to see that here on MSNBC, the journalists actually pushed back, whereas during the debate on ABC, when she said that, the moderators on ABC absolutely did not check her, even though they fact-checked Trump many, many times.
For the pandemic, he lost manufacturing jobs by most people's estimates, at least 200,000. He lost.
And so here, there's not going to be any pushback from that statement from the journalist, but she ended up being checked here by CNN. Fact check: Harris makes false claim about Trump's record on manufacturing jobs. And so she claimed 200,000 jobs lost, but the fact check from CNN, not from someone who's not friendly to her. Harris claims it's false. Trump presided over a gain of 414,000 manufacturing jobs. Let's go back to
manufacturing plants. Ask the auto workers how he lost auto plants. We have grown over 20 new auto plants. He has an agenda.
And so those auto plants that the Biden-Harris administration have supposedly created, they were really about I think it was the Inflation Reduction Act, this incredible spending bill, 1.7 trillion, if I remember correctly, which, sort of gave money to the auto companies to manufacture EVs. But now that we've, a few years after all that, and we've seen the result, well, as it turns out, all these companies have lost massive amounts of money over, selling these vehicles that nobody really want. And, overall, it has been a major failure. And now the auto companies are in a terrible situation. And Stellantis, for example, firing many, many people. And the Chinese auto industry now is coming with super cheap EVs. And we're going to talk a little bit about the tariffs later in this interview. But of course, that's going to be a very, very big problem. Another policy that completely backfired on the Biden-Harris administration. But let's move now at 4:30. And here they're going to talk about taxes.
Prove my point correct.
Then let me ask you about taxes, because lots of people will say, I don't like Donald Trump, but he cut my taxes. He didn't just cut corporate taxes, he cut individual taxes. Now that expires next year, and there's some people confused saying, I don't know what's going to happen next year. Under a Harris administration, at what income level should someone expect their taxes to go up? And that state and local tax deduction that's currently capped and matters to a lot of people in blue states, are you going to lift that cap?
And before she answered, she talks about state and local taxes, the SALT deductions that Trump took away. And Kamala Harris is not going to answer this question about SALT. And it's very important, of course, because, if you know a little bit about that, the state and local taxes, it was a way for people to deduct from their federal taxes the amount that they were spending on state and local taxes. And it was very important, as she said, to Democrats in blue states, because it really was a way for very rich people, like Hollywood celebrities and such, to offset their, heavy federal tax burden by spending taxes locally. So, they bought all these mega mansions here in California for tens of millions of dollars. And the taxes that they were spending here, they were able to offset them on their federal return. And then when Trump came in and, killed those tax deductions, then it absolutely destroyed the people who were sort of involved in this tax deduction scheme. And that's sort of the reason why you see the very high end of the real estate. Sort of here in California, you'll hear about such and such actors bought this mansion for like $40 million, and now they're selling it back for 20, getting this huge loss. And the reason for that is because, well, they can't use it really as a scheme to deduct from their federal taxes. And so there's a lot less demand. And because it's such a small market, it has hurt them tremendously. And so, of course, you're going to hear sort of Kamala Harris throughout this interview talking about how, she wants to give tax cuts for the poor and, make the rich pay their fair share of taxes and whatnot. But actually is exactly the opposite. And Donald Trump really hurt, very, very heavily the people who are sort of involved in this SALT deductions. And of course, if she gets in the White House, she's going to stop this, and she's going to reenact the SALT deductions. but she's not going to answer that. And of course, she's not going to answer that because the answer would be, like saying, oh, I'm actually going to give a huge tax break to very, very rich people. But let's listen to her answer.
First of all, when it relates to anybody making less than $400,000 a year, your taxes will not go up.
And that's the same nonsense that Joe Biden said. Oh, if you're making less than $400,000, your taxes will not go up. But we're gonna be printing money like crazy, and you're gonna eat inflation, like you've never seen. And basically, inflation is a tax, and it's a broad-based tax that affects everyone, regardless of income. So it's really meaningless to say you're not gonna increase taxes for people who make less than 400,000 if on the other side you're just going to be printing and then getting inflation to levels that we've never seen.
Taxes will not go up. And in fact, under my plan, taxes for 100 million Americans will actually be cut, including $6,000 a year for young couples for the first year of their child's life in a tax credit, essentially, by expansion of the child tax credit. And why is that? Because during the first year of a young couple, of a person's child's life, they're going to need help buying a crib, buying a car seat. And we all benefit when they're actually able to do what they...
Another talking point that she keeps saying, they need help buying a crib or a car seat. They need help with a lot more than that.
They naturally want to do to take care of their child.
And expanding that child tax credit, or you mentioned housing before, giving that extra money for a first home. If you can't raise corporate taxes, or if GOP takes control of the Senate, where do you get the money to do that? Do you still go forward with the...
And that's going to be a very big question for her. Let's see how she answers.
Those plans and borrow?
Well, but we're going to have to raise corporate taxes, and we're going to have to make sure that the biggest corporations and billionaires pay their fair share. That's just it.
So she doesn't answer. The question was, how are you gonna do that if you can't get the votes? And her answer is, oh, but we're gonna have to. Well, if you can't and you have to, it doesn't provide a solution. Anyway, let's move on a little bit here. Let's move to, let's go to the tariffs quickly. Tariffs going to be at 14. Let me go. Here he is.
Because you just mentioned it, it's not just with one company. Donald Trump's sort of big idea is this broad-based tariffs across the board. You and many others have said that would be not only disastrous, but it would be a direct tax on the American consumer.
It would be a sales tax on the American people. The independent economists have already measured this by the sales tax of doing a 20% tariffs on all imports that he has described would be a 20% sales tax, in essence, on basic necessities for the average American worker, average American family, totaling almost $4,000 a year. That is no small matter. Here in Pittsburgh,
and of course, it's her sort of talking point. It's a sales tax. Now, of course, if you have broad-based tariffs of 20%, it's going to increase the price of goods sort of across the board. But the strategy in doing that is, of course, to trying to bring manufacturing back onshore and to have companies decide to produce these goods in the U.S. rather than do it in other countries and bringing jobs back to America. But it's sort of funny that they're using this, oh, but this would be incredible, having the cost of living for Americans increase by 20% when, the Biden-Harris administration, through their inflation, I've brought an increase in the cost of living that is much greater than 40%. And yet they haven't put, extra tariffs. I guess they kept the tariffs that Trump had, but it didn't lead to any jobs coming back in the U.S. So, in the end, they did essentially an increase of the cost of living that was just as bad as the one that would happen, I guess, under Trump tariffs. But when they did it really without any upside, you know, sort of if you get tariffs on manufactured goods from outside, then maybe you can bring some jobs. Maybe you have a chance to actually get something good for American workers. But on the other end, when it was the Biden-Harris administration, they did it without any counterparty that was positive for Americans. But now let's move. Let's see. Oh, let's move. We're kind of late in this video. We're gonna probably wrap it pretty soon. Let's move now to one of the big lies. Where is it? It's of course the McDonald's.
A little
Every
job.
day. Okay.
There's no such thing as a little job.
Okay, fair. Because your opponent almost every day seems to be talking about this. So I just want to ask you yes or no. At any point in your life, have you served 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, working at a McDonald's? Yes or no? That's it.
I have.
Okay, now the other job. But
it was
Absolute nonsense. And she finishes the question like this is like pop lyrics or something like that. And of course, you know, this is the type of questions that were fed ahead to her. And you know, there is no pushback, there is no inquiry, no one has ever verified what she said, but you know, everybody's taking it to her word. This story, which is absolutely unbelievable, no one is going to believe that. But anyway, they will keep going with it because no one can verify it. And now let's move to our final lie, I guess. And it comes here at 21:14.
You have laid out policy in great detail.
Yeah.
But the economy is an unpredictable beast. And you are running for a job that takes extraordinary instinct and guts.
Yeah.
What's the last time you had to make a gut decision? This here is very prescribed, it's very controlled.
Yeah. Probably the biggest gut decision I've made most recently is to choose my running mate. Yeah.
Yeah.
There were lots of good.
You see, it's hilarious. The face of the anchor is like, yeah, it's like she's nodding, but like it doesn't look like the face of someone who believes you. And of course, it's an absolute nonsense. She didn't choose her running mate. She didn't choose Tim Waltz. Just the same way that nobody really, you know, at least in the Democratic primaries, nobody chose Kamala Harris. All these people have been appointed by the higher ups at the party. And, you know, this is a ticket that's absolutely artificial. And in the end, you know, if Trump gets reelected, then the Democrats will have no one to blame but themselves by having appointed these people in an undemocratic fashion. You know, if they had appointed someone in a Democratic primary, then maybe they would have had a chance of having someone who actually would have motivated the base and people would be wanting to vote for that person. But when you just parachute someone who no one likes, who has been part of an administration that people had rejected, and you put this person in front of a camera and they can't even answer simple questions, then I don't really see how they're going to manage to convince even their base, let alone independent voters, but even their base, to come out and actually carry her past the finish line. But anyway, guys, that was it for the interview of Kamala Harris on MSNBC yesterday. Trainwreck of an interview. It's not going to do any good for her, but my guess is that's probably the only one that we're going to see from here until the election. They're not going to let her go back in front of us, and they're not going to gift us another one of this hilarious interview. It's funny to see also, you know, the background of this. You know, she said it was a controlled environment. And you see here this background, this completely fabricated. I don't know whether it's like, it looks like a hotel ballroom or something like that that's being renovated. And she has all this industrial stuff behind her, as if they're trying to picture her as a champion of manufacturing workers, blue collars, and all that stuff. Anyway, absolute nonsense and totally artificial. But that's how it is with the mainstream media. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Hit me with that like, and sub to the channel. Hit me with that like, and click the effing bell. Click that bit, alright. The algo recommends, for she don't like. The algo knows you well. Hit me with that like, subscribe to the channel. Hit me with that like, and click the effing bell.